Many thanks for joining us. This is Business Incorporated on Channels Television. I am BC Adebayo. Coming up, South Africa's headline consumer inflation increases to 5.1% year-on-year in September, and U.S. authorities sue London-based Rio Tinto and two former top executives for misleading investors about a coal deal in Mozambique. Plus, Zimbabwe to slash its budget deficit to 4% of gross domestic product. Well, let's head straight to the stock markets now, beginning from Africa, where most of the indices are still pointing southwards at intraday. Nigeria's all-share index is down 0.02%, while the South African Bourse has also lost 0.05% at intraday. But still talking about Nigeria, news coming in today says that the Securities and Exchange Commission has directed the Nigerian Stock Exchange to suspend trading on the shares of the indigenous trading firm Owando PLC. And in a statement on the website of the NSE, the exchange is to implement a full suspension in the trading of the security effective for 48 hours beginning from today till Friday. Now, we're still talking about the markets, but this time in Egypt, where the index is the only one in the green at intraday with 1.04%. The Kenyan Bourse closed 0.68% lower on Tuesday. And petrochemical shares dragged down Saudi Arabia's stock market in early trade on Wednesday, while Dubai's real estate developers traded actively after the reported third-quarter earnings. The Saudi index fell 0.25% in the first half hour as Saudi basic industries sank 1.8% and Gambu Petrochemical dropped 1.4%. In Dubai, the index was up 0.06% at intraday. Qatar's index lost 1.03% as real estate firms declined, with Aston Holdings slipping 1.7% and United Development falling 2.1%. Sanctions imposed on Qatar by other Arab states have accelerated a downturn in the Qatari property market. And European markets were higher this morning as investors monitored the latest batch of earnings and economic data releases and NAFTA trade talks, as well as the Communist Party Congress in China. For more on the markets, let's talk to Conrad Busen, who's at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. It's good to see you, Conrad. So the NAFTA trade talks between the U.S., Canada and Mexico have hit a snag. Is Europe interested in this trade deal, and why?
Well, you know, if this deal and the talks about those renegotiations between the U.S. and the Mexicans and the Canadians had ended now, it would have been a catastrophic piece of news. So people here are quite happy that the prolongation of those talks happened now, and that now the three parties involved plan to finish those renegotiations by the end of the first quarter of 2018. But this is about the only positive thing that people here have to say about the way that those negotiations happened so far. It's been a very contentious round of talks. The Americans are really demanding very tough things from the Mexicans and the Canadians. For example, they want to renegotiate the NAFTA contract every 5 years in future, something that the Mexicans and the Canadians find difficult to accept. And they also want the largest chunk, the lion's part of the auto production in North America situated in the United States in future. One wonders how that might go. Also, the Americans want to have it easier to impose trade barriers on certain products from Canada and Mexico, something that the Canadians and the Mexicans don't find it easy to accept. No, if you talk to people here, most are not very optimistic about how the renegotiation of NAFTA will go in the coming months. And that's, of course, very important to many European companies which have a lot of business in North America, and that so far also benefited from the fact that there were no borders and no trade barriers between Mexico, the United States and Canada.
Now, China and its Communist Party Congress is another political driver for the markets at the moment. But what's in focus here from a market's point of view?
Well, the most important piece of data will come out tomorrow. That's the update of the third quarter GDP of China. The way how the Chinese economy grows and whether or not the Chinese government manages to meet its growth targets is very important for business here in Germany as well. As you know, China is the largest and most important contributor to worldwide growth, to global growth, and Germany's economy and the economy in the Eurozone as a whole is connected worldwide. We're big exporters to China and we have strong relations with China. That's why it's very important. Another piece of information that everyone will be listening to very closely coming out of this Congress of the Communist Party in Beijing will be about foreign investment. Remember, last year we talked about a record amount of money that Chinese companies and investors spent abroad, taking over companies here in Germany, but also companies in Africa. They spent more than $220 billion last year on foreign investments. And this amount of money has been much smaller this year so far because the government in Beijing intended to limit the outflows of capital out of China. It's going to be interesting to hear what the plans of the Chinese government are here.
Away from China now, Conrad, the Dow Jones Index races past 23,000 points on Tuesday. Is the Dow been driven too fast and furious?
Well, BC, look right behind me. Look at what the reaction here in Frankfurt was. This is what another record high is looking like. This is 13,094 points for the German share index DAX. So the market here is following the Dow Jones Industrial Average thanks to further positive quarterly earnings reports, for example, from IBM, the maker of computer hardware and other hosting and consulting services, came in with results that showed a stop of the decline of the business, and that gives hope that the company might have reached some turnaround. The share price is up 6%. Tonight we'll get more earnings reports from eBay, for example, and from Amex, American Express. And tomorrow, the first German blue chip, the first large German company, will come out with its quarterly earnings. SAP, the software company, and of course this record high here today gives hope that those numbers from SAP will also be looking good.
Well, let's see if the numbers will indeed keep looking good for the rest of the week. Thank you so much, Conrad, for those updates, and enjoy the rest of your day.